wild world of reel-to-reel tape compatibility, or rather the lack thereof.
Oh, the incompatibility issues can be frustrating.
And we're zeroing in on one specific headache.
Yeah.
Trying to play 4-track tapes on a 2-track machine. So imagine a 4-track tape, like a 4-lane highway.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
2 lanes going one way, 2 going the other.
Gotcha.
But here's the catch. Those lanes are interwoven, or as the audio wizards call it, interleaved.
Interleaved, like a braided loaf of bread.
Perfect analogy. So on one side of the tape, you've got tracks 1 and 3 playing together to create stereo sound.
So 2 tracks for one direction of the stereo.
Precisely. Then you flip the tape over and voila, tracks 2 and 4 kick in also in stereo. But get this in reverse order.
Wow, my head's already spinning trying to keep track of which track is playing when.
Right, it's a bit of a sonic puzzle.
But that's 4-track for you.
Now, contrast that with a 2-track tape.
Okay, let's simplify things.
2-track keeps it nice and straightforward.
Like a nice 2-lane highway.
Exactly. You've got 2 wide lanes, 1 for each side of the tape.
Simple and efficient.
No interleaving, no back and forth, just pure, unadulterated audio bliss.
Makes sense. Whoa, that is trippy. Yeah, I don't speak Danish.
But here's where the trouble brews, when you try to play that interleaved 4-track tape on a 2-track machine.
Oh boy, I can see where this is going.
It's like trying to cram those 4 lanes of traffic onto a 2-lane road during rush hour. See, the 2-track head is wide enough that it picks up 2 of those 4-track lanes at the same time.
But they're going in opposite directions.
Exactly. Which is why you get that jumbled mess like a sonic blender gone haywire.
It's trying to make a smoothie out of 2 different songs.
And to make matters worse, parts of the sound end up playing backward.
Like rewinding a conversation mid-sentence.
Now I bet you're thinking, hold on a second, cassette tapes are 4-track, but I can play a mono cassette on a stereo player just fine.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So why the difference?
Well, that's because cassette tapes were the cool kids on the block.
They learned from the reel-to-reel's tangled mess.
They said, we're gonna make this easy peasy.
They're all about compatibility and user-friendliness.
Exactly. So unlike their reel-to-reel cousins, cassette tapes don't do that whole interleaving thing.
No more sonic lane weaving.
Nope. Their stereo tracks are neatly stacked on top of each other.
Like a well-organized bookshop.
Precisely. So when you play a mono cassette on a stereo player, both heads pick up the same audio, no problem.
Makes total sense.
And if you play a stereo cassette on a mono player, it just combines those 2 channels. On reel-to-reels, those stereo channels, they're interlaced. But why on earth would they design reel-to-reels this way in the first place?
Right. Well, it all comes down to the limitations of early tape technology. Back then, one of the biggest challenges was something called crosstalk. Imagine you're recording 2 tracks very close together on a tape.
Like lanes on a highway. If they get too close, there's bound to be an accident.
Exactly. A crosstalk is essentially the bleeding of signals between those closely spaced tracks. Hearing a faint echo of one channel and the other muddying up the sound.
Right. Okay.
Now, in those early days of reel-to-reel, the recording and playback heads weren't as precise as they are today.
Yeah.
They had a wider magnetic field,
Okay.
which made crosstalk a much bigger issue, especially with stereo recordings.
So to minimize this audio bleed, they spaced out the left and right channels, like creating a buffer zone between the lanes on that audio highway.
Precisely. By interlacing the tracks, putting track 1 and track 3 together, and 2 and 4,
Okay.
they physically separated the stereo pairs on the tape.
Okay.
This increased the distance between the left and right channel,
Okay.
reducing crosstalk, and improving channel separation, which is crucial for clear, distinct stereo image.
Okay, that makes sense. But then why didn't cassette tapes use the same interlacing trick? They came later.
They did, and here's where things get really interesting. Cassette tapes didn't interlace their tracks.
What?
Instead, they laid them out sequentially. Tracks 1 and 2 for side A, and 3 and 4 for side B, all running in the same direction.
So a cassette's left and right channels are right next to each other. Weren't they worried about that crosstalk problem?
By the time cassette tapes hit the scene, technology had advanced significantly.
Oh.
The recording and playback heads were much smaller and more precise, with a narrower magnetic field. This meant they could place the left and right channels next to each other without significant crosstalk.
So they basically engineered their way out of the problem that led to reel-to-reel's interlaced format.
Yeah.
It's amazing how technology can shift.
Yeah, this difference highlights how engineers prioritize the features based on the technology that's available and how they think a technology will be used.
So we have reel-to-reels prioritizing sound quality.
Yeah.
Remember, minimizing crosstalk was all about achieving that clean stereo sound. And then cassettes, aiming for like a wider consumer market, went for a totally different approach.
Yes, and that approach was mono-compatibility. Remember those old mono radios and record players? By placing the left and right channels next to each other, cassette tapes could be played on both mono and stereo machines.
Oh, okay.
A mono machine playing a cassette would essentially pick up both channels and combine them, creating a mono signal.
Ah, so cassettes were designed to be more like flexible, accessible, even for people with like older mono equipment. But this design choice came with a trade-off. While the adjacent track layout ensured mono compatibility, it also meant that cassettes couldn't achieve the same level of channel separation as reel-to-reels.
That's right.
At least in theory.
At least in theory.
Reel-to-reels with their interlaced tracks had the potential for a wider, more distinct stereo image.
Yeah.
Even if it meant, sacrificing that mono compatibility.
It's a trade-off.
So is a trade-off. Better channel separation and potentially higher sound quality reel-to-reels versus broader compatibility and ease of use with cassettes.
Exactly.
And all because of how those tiny tracks are laid out on the tape.
That's right. It might seem like a minor detail, but it reflects a larger theme in technology.
Yeah.
It's like comparing a high-end sports car designed for optimal performance to a versatile SUV designed for everyday use.
Okay.
Both have their strengths and are engineered for different purposes.
Ooh. Yeah.